Hey, Emil Vaagland.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, I have to admit, it made my day today doing my research on you because I was looking at your LinkedIn, right? And it was like, master's degree in communications technology, did some freelance developer stuff, and then worked for a consulting company with Java. And then it was like DJ / promoter for an organization called Raw Juice / Ball 'em Up. And I'm like, what? I scrolled up, was like, is this the same guy? Yeah, nice. So booking artists, designing flyers, curating weekly mix series, interviewing artists, and running a record label.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that has been the hobby since, 2007 or something. Just having fun with friends, playing the music you love in clubs, and booking artists and stuff. So yeah, it's been
awesome. Cool. It's just usually two different worlds. That kind of guy and a developer guy.
Yeah. Like you have to do something in the weekends as well, right? So.
Yeah. Well, you like being awake in the nighttime. I guess those two have those in common.
Yeah. Well, now I have a small baby, so I'm also awake, but for different reasons. So yeah.
I was gonna say, I see that you ended that record or that part of your. It's not on LinkedIn, and it's not a current.
Yeah.
So. So what else have you been up to? Who's Emil?
Not much. Just been working now in the Schibsted group for like 11 years soon. So. And part of that has been in central teams, both as a software engineer, but and then security engineering, and then more like a security manager. So yeah.
Which is your current title today, right? Security manager.
Yeah.
I've been telling people like, I'm gonna have FINN on today, and they look at me, and I'm like, FINN, like FINN.no, and they're like, oh yeah. So I realized that true Norwegian, you have to say FINN.no, or else they're gonna think that I'm talking to somebody named Finn.
Yeah. Yeah, we have had a couple of guys there that were named Finn, so they had like Finn at Finn, but
nice.
then they get a lot of spam as well, right? So
yeah, of course. So I mean, everybody in Norway, they have to know what Finn is, but for our international listeners, who is Finn, the opportunities market?
Yeah, so it's basically the one and only classified sites in Norway where you can go to buy and sell whatever, but also like your house, your car, and also applying for jobs, right? So it's the one-stop shop for all of that.
I guess you call it a classified site, huh?
Or like a marketplace site, but yeah, it's like the Craigslist of Norway, but just a nicer.
The Craigslist of Norway, yeah.
Just a nicer design, right?
Yeah.
More features.
It's super smooth.
Yeah.
It must be one of the most liked brands in Norway because it's like nothing ever goes wrong with it. It's just you just have to love Finn. It just works.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And everybody knows about it, so it's quite easy to say like we are working. Yeah. It's way easier to say that than to say Schibsted marketplaces. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what is the business model of that? I would guess it's advertising. Is there anything more to that?
No, so we basically earn money on the real estate agents or people selling their car or house and stuff. That's where the big bucks is, and jobs.
And jobs, yeah.
Yeah, but like the re-commerce, like the things you sell yourself, is mostly for free, right? So we don't earn that much money on that. So yeah, it's mostly the car industry, I would say, that we earn the most money at the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, so you were one of the first sort of organizations in Norway to be like, okay, as long as we get people there, we can figure out how to capitalize on it, right?
Yeah, and it's usually like the biggest or the one that owns the market, they own the whole market. Like there's no like 50% there. So we're lucky in that sense.
I love Finn.
Nice.
And I see, when did you start out? In like 2006 or something, the company?
Finn, I think it was before that. So like it started as Visavisen way before that. So they took like the ads from Aftenposten and just printed them online.
Okay.
So that was the inception of Finn. But I think it was like around year 2000 or something.
Okay, well, it makes sense. The good old .com bubble.
Yeah.
The internet, people started figuring out what that was. I look at you now as like the cloud company, like cloud first Finn, but you haven't always been like that because there was no cloud back then. How was that sort of like?
Yeah, so like Finn was quite late to go to the cloud, actually. I think we migrated in 2019, 2020. So that was after I started working for Finn, actually. But we did start very early with like Kubernetes and stuff. So we were deployed to like a on-premise Kubernetes thing in like 2014, 13 maybe. So they have been very like early to adopt like those kinds of technologies. But the cloud journey started later for Finn, and then they moved to GCP. And the rest of the Schibsted organization, they were big on AWS. So now we have like both of them.
Multi-cloud now.
Yeah, multi-cloud for real.
that's interesting. That just that journey, like, what was the driver behind that?
Also, they did run Kubernetes on-premise because they had an on-premise data center, and they could just run it there. But that also made it easier to migrate to the cloud because they could just spin up Kubernetes on Google and then just push everything over there, right? So yeah, so that made the cloud go to cloud journey way easier, I would say.
I feel super stupid right now, but like Kubernetes, why is that? Like, why did they use that?
Because they wanted some easy way to deploy containers and manage them in an easy way. And like we have about 1,100 applications or containers, so there's a lot. So it was the trendy thing at the time to how to manage and run your containers.
Yeah. So then the containers, though, like when you say 1,100 applications, I'm thinking like jobs, or like you have like these things that you provide, but you don't have 1,100 services on Finn. So like, how does the containers work to your services?
Yeah, well, we have too many microservices, right? So like there is a service for like this contact button, right? So there is a service for everything, basically. So it's split up in many small parts.
Yeah. So okay. I'm going to learn a lot from this episode, that's for sure. Okay, so today, like from your standpoint, like you're the security manager. What does security mean for you guys? I would assume that you have like development security, and you have, what is the scope of security for you?
Yeah, so for me and my team, we basically focus on the product security. So anything security related to like the end user FINN.no services, and we don't focus on the corporate IT or the IT security thing. That's handled by a different team. And then we have like the CISO and the GRC team as well. So it's basically anything from like software security to cloud security and in between that we focus on.
I just had a chat with our mutual friend Håkon Surum, and he was giving me some context about like the term CNAP and like, the clients that have a cloud native application, cloud native applications, which is you, right? That that's a whole different world than the corporate IT sort of world that a lot of people are used to.
Yeah, it is. I think it's way easier to do like security in the cloud context, for example, because there's APIs for everything, right? So it's easier to like get information and then analyze stuff automatically, right?
I've never heard anybody say that, but I guess that's usually I'm hearing this from people that are used to like the on-premise way of doing things, and they think the cloud is hard because it's different. Well,
the cloud is sort of documented, and you can use the APIs to automate everything, right? So it's easier to like do things at scale, I would say. Whereas on-prem stuff might be a bit more trickier and more like non-standard solutions, maybe.
The corporate IT stuff is just a different department. Do you guys talk to each other at all?
Yeah, we do. We have a security organization, but we're not like sitting next to each other, but we do collaborate on a bunch of things that are common.
Overlapping,
Yeah, overlapping.
Yeah, interested in that. What is overlapping?
For example, I would say identity and access management for like personal identities, right? They are owned by some teams, HR, and then we come in the mix to give them access to cloud resources, etc. And that can overlap with other services on your local machine, etc.
I was just thinking like, okay, like what would the worst case be for Finn? That would kind of be like fraud and or that your systems go down, right?
Yeah. I guess if the system is down for a long period, then we don't make money, right? So that's bad. But like I think we have an appetite that it's okay to be down as long as we have a plan to fix it, right? And like we get the DDoS attacks all the time, but like the tooling we have right now, usually it's quite good to mitigate it and to detect it. So I'm not too worried about that, but yeah.
Is that under your umbrella of responsibility, the DDoS stuff?
Yeah, sort of, but I think the cloud infrastructure team, like the team that are handling the load balancers and set up there, they are like owning that feature and are handling those incidents themselves. But we do get a lot of fraud, and that's another team, which basically is like the user safety team that focuses on detecting fraud and also investigating fraud and building tools to find fraudsters, basically.
I would assume that they're the ones that have the most incidents, if I can call it that. They must be busy.
Yeah. Things that happen daily with scammers trying new stuff.
Right. Just the DDoS, like I know maybe that's not your team or your responsibility, it's the cloud's team, but like How does that world look like these days?
I would say it's been the same for the last 6 years. Like, it happens from time to time, but every time it happens, we can easily mitigate it. So it haven't really been a big issue, I would say, and it's not something I'm very worried about. So there are like good tools in every cloud provider to prevent these things and detect it, right?
So do you use a cloud provider? You don't use like the Telenor or Cloudflare or whatever? I'm trying to figure out like, what does DDoS mean these days, and who's supposed to like address it?
Yeah, no, I think most of the cloud providers, they have their own built-in solutions that can handle these kinds of attacks. Either it's layer 3 attacks, or layer 7 attacks, etc. And I think that's good enough.
Well, apparently.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, we never know.
Yeah, the fraud team. What's the different thing you mentioned about them? Well, that's not really security, I guess, at that point, huh?
Yeah, like it's basically two different teams. So we have one team that is building like the tools that the other team is using. So they are like building like message control and detecting like spammy links in messages, etc. And then finding like the phishing sites, taking them down, etc. And then the other team that is working with these tools to like investigate different things. And if some customer complain, they will investigate those types of incidents. But like quite often, the scammers, they take the communication outside of FINN. So they send them a message or like a email, and then we can't really stop it. So that's the problem, the biggest problem, I would say.
Yeah, I spoke with the CISO at LinkedIn a while back, and he said the same thing. Like, if you're a self-respecting e-commerce site, they're like in that area where you have a lot of users, you need to put a bunch of things in place. But then bad guys just take them out. It's easier out there.
yeah, they have. It's easy to be an attacker these days, or a fraudster, I would say.
Yeah, I would assume that your team has maybe helping them with the tooling that they use to, I don't know, dissect the messages or...
Also, this is basically more like homemade tools that they made. So it's basically up to that team to like what tools they build to detect the different types of malicious activities. Or they add like a phone verification thing in a flow, for example, to like prevent mass sign up of users. So it can be like the product design features as well.
That must be a very varied team, because you have to be kind of like security minded, you have to be kind of like fraud minded, you have to be able to develop it. You have to have a lot of resources in one team.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, they have enough stuff to do at least.
Yeah.
But like speaking of these fraudsters, like we have rarely seen fraudsters misusing like security vulnerabilities, application security vulnerabilities to do fraud. That's quite interesting. Like there was one time where they found a bug to bypass the phone verification, and then we saw that they actually skipped that step. So then they actually misused a logical vulnerability. But that's the only evidence we have of like a fraudster misusing some sort of security vulnerability to do fraud.
Is that just because it's easier to not have to do all
that? Yeah, I think so. So it's easier to just send a message to an old person and say, hey, I'm from FINN, give me money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of doing some 0-day hacking stuff.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a rude question, but what do you do at work if you have all these like different teams doing all this stuff that I would like define as security? What does your security day look like?
Yeah, so basically anything from code to cloud, it's basically the catchphrase. So we have a lot of services like code security tools, we have dynamic tools, we run bug bounty programs, and we do like a bunch of cloud security stuff. And other than that, like my team also want to contribute on like the security engineering part. So making sure that our platforms are secure by default, that we do the right things when we're building the platform. A bunch of different things actually. But
what sort of projects have you been using your time on? Lessons learned have you had from all those things that you just mentioned?
Yeah, where to start? So I guess for the code scanning, like we have been using GitHub Advanced Security now for about 3 or 4 years, and like we still have a very low coverage on the CodeQL code scanning, and the main reason for that is it has historically been quite hard to like roll it out, because you need to change each and every code repo to add this code scanning, and sometimes it doesn't build automatically, which means that you have to talk to developers, you have to destroy their workflow basically, and that's so like we don't want to be disruptive or block people, but CodeQL is getting better now, so it has more automatic features for rolling stuff out, so we'll see how that goes. but we still have good coverage on the FINN.no prod applications, but like there's still a lot of other stuff to cover. So yeah, it's nice to have, but it's not super critical either. So like we get a lot of findings from it, but they are all not very often exploitable in prod, but they are still real findings. So we try to focus on the findings that have impact, like real world impact basically. So we don't pester developers with fixing up like 100 vulnerabilities that have that have no impact. So try to only communicate stuff that is important, I would say, to fix.
Finding the vulnerabilities that actually are a real problem, and not just like hidden in some place that are like. How do you get to that point in practice?
Yeah, so like if you get a vulnerability report and you know that this application is not exposed on the internet and there is no way for the attackers to reach that vulnerability, then that's not really exploitable in production. So then we can just forget about that. Even though it's nice to fix everything, not everything needs to be fixed, and that's an example of that. So like we basically try to filter out what's exploitable and not exploitable and try to focus on the exploitable stuff.
Yeah. So I saw you speak at a conference, so I kind of know which tool you're using for that. But is it possible to do exactly what you just said without having a tool for it? Or I know possible, but like man hours or woman hours physically possible? Like how'd you do it before?
You mean like the code scanning part or the...
Yeah, or no, the prioritization part. Like the code scanning part's one thing, but to figure out which to go first, you know?
Yeah, like so I guess you could have some sort of magical application inventory with like all this thing attributed. So you can attribute the finding there. You can see, oh, this thing is not exploited, or this thing is not exposed online, then it's not exploitable, right? And like there are like a bunch of tools in the ASPM world, or like I think we can even use a CNAP for that stuff. But you still need to map your vulnerabilities from GitHub into that platform onto the right thing, right? And so there are solutions for it, but not very mature at the moment. But yeah.
Okay, so you can't just buy a tool and it becomes easy.
Well, you can if you like. So if you ask the vendors, you can do it, of course. But in the real world, in a complex organization, it's not that easy. But for sure, we are getting there, and yeah.
And what is that like? How long did it take you to go through that whole process? Then, I guess you've been doing this for multiple years now, so you've kind of perfected it. But
no, it's quite quick for us because like we can easily look up where this application is deployed and where it is exposed on the internet, if it's exposed. So that's quite quick with the tools we have.
Yeah. So you the importance of asset inventory, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. But that's for free in the cloud, right? Because you can just use an API to get all that information. Yeah.
But if it was so damn easy, why does everybody suck at it?
I don't know.
I guess it's not just the cloud people. I guess it's the ones that have on-prem stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, like you still need to manage it somehow because it's quite a lot of information, and you need to know how to look it up, right?
Yeah. And then going back to like the code scanning part, like how much code did you guys produce?
Hard to say, but like we have maybe 2,000 deployments per week at the moment. But I think that might include because like we are Schibsted marketplaces now, so we're working for all the marketplaces, not just Finn. So like the scope is way bigger, but for the Finn part, I think it's like 2,000 commits or deployments deployments per week at this stage.
Wow!
And there's about 500 plus developers in the whole organization. So,
And in your teams, when you have all these developers, like you said, 500 commits a week or whatever, like do those teams have their own security resource, or is that kind of like they go through you, or how have you guys like structured that?
Also, they are totally free, but of course they own their own things from like operation stuff, but also like the security stuff. So they own their own stuff, but we are trying to help them and enable them into fixing the right things. So when we get a critical bug bounty report, they usually fix that quite fast. Whereas if there is like 50 critical vulnerable dependencies, that's not that important because they're often not exploitable.
Does everybody on your team actually come from development and actually understands how they're working?
Well, I guess at least over half of them are like ex-developers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like, and the other part is more like operation background, I would say. But yeah, we have like also tried to like scale security champions in Finn like 3 different times, but it always fails because people are too busy doing other stuff than doing the security stuff. So it's hard to like set aside time to do like a security project when you're actually working on something else. But we have tried doing it to have like some sort of community where people can talk together. But yeah, that's about it.
So did you guys just kind of give up on that then, just because it just doesn't work? Wasn't working in theory.
That was mostly because we have had this reorg for a long time. So like we are going to join the marketplaces together from all these different countries, and at that time we just stopped it because there was so much going on in the organization with the reorg and stuff. But we do have plans to relaunching it when we find a format that works for this new organization.
And I'm asking these questions not to like make Finn look bad or anything. It's just because like I just hear you hear these things at conferences all the time, and it's like it's interesting to hear why does it work in practice. I feel like that's where we need to spend more time focusing on like how do you make this shit work in practice?
Yeah, but like
instead of on a PowerPoint.
Yeah, but to make it work at our scale, like we have like 30 to 40 or 50 different champions, then you need like a full-time position to follow them up, or like several persons to follow them up, right? If you're gonna do it like project-based champions. And if you have like just a monthly sync or weekly sync, then maybe 1/3 of them will show up, right? So it's even harder to scale information in that case as well. So yeah.
Do you have any other cool, interesting things to say about the code aspect of your work that you find interesting in that world?
Yeah, so like we have all the programming languages in the world, because the developers can basically pick and choose the languages and framework they like. So we have a lot of different stuff, but still, like most teams, try to converge on some common languages, of course. But that also makes it harder to like buy some code scanning tool because it doesn't support all of the languages, right? So we try to just get stuff that fits for most of our common languages, I would say.
Bug bounty, I guess that's kind of along the same lines, right? So then you have external people telling you things going on. Anything to say about your bug bounty?
Yeah, so we've been doing it since 2019. And I think I spent about over $200,000 on bounties so far. And it might sound like a lot for a Norwegian company, but if you compare it to like big US companies, they pay more than that in a week. So it's pennies basically. But it's still like the average bounty is around $300-400. So it's quite effective in terms of cost, I would say. And over the years, we have found maybe over 400 vulnerabilities that were real in prod, right? That has been fixed. So that has been also very effective, I would say. And I would say that the developers, they also like the program because now we send them reports that are real all the time, not just false positives, right? And
exactly, yeah.
And that helps. And they also like to read vulnerabilities from like a hacker. So it's like a cool report. They get to see it.
Hacker.
Yeah. So I think it's been very successful in terms of both the vulnerabilities we have found, but also like the awareness about the program and the vulnerabilities we have.
Do you do the open program, or do you have like what do they call it, private program?
Yeah, private. No, so we have been private all the time, and mostly because to keep the report quality high. So not the whole world can send us spammy stuff. So
Are they Norwegians, the researchers, or most of them?
Some, but I think most of them are from other parts of Europe and the world. But there are some Norwegians there as well.
I know Visma has a bug bounty program, but I guess there can't be that much more than you two in Norway.
No, so we have Sparebank1 and Oda. They also have programs, and Kahoot. But Schibsted has 6 programs. So we have like one for Finn, one for Schibsted, News Media, and then 2 for the other marketplaces. So we have more bug bounty programs than the rest of Norway, I would say. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, because you have to be a certain maturity level to actually have a program, right? And actually be able to.
Not really. Not really. Like people say that, but like what do you mean by maturity? I think like the only thing you need is basically to be able to fix the vulnerability within a reasonable amount of time. But like if you talk about like AppSec maturity, I don't think that's that important, because you can scan all the code you have or like run 10,000 pen tests, but you still will have unknown vulnerabilities in production. Because like the code scanning doesn't find everything. A pen test is more like point in time stuff, right? So it's more continuous and more effective, I would say.
Which is why you do a little bit of all of them, I would assume.
Yeah. But so my recommendation is that don't do all of these AppSec thing before you launch a bug bounty program. Just start it, and you will do some real risk reduction from day one instead.
Of all those things that you've been talking about, like your bug bounty program, the code scanning, pen tests, what do you think reduces the risk the most?
Of course, it's the bug bounty program, since I found like 400 vulnerabilities over the last 5 years, right?
Yeah.
The code scanning, I found some, but yeah, like it's more about like 10 to 20 real vulnerabilities, I would say, than 400. So it's a different scale. Of course, the pen test will also find stuff, but it takes so much time to scope every pen test, and it's way more expensive. It's also like point in time, you get fewer people looking at the site. So yeah, like we still do it for the things that cannot be tested in the bug bounty program, but it's more for the special use cases and not testing the whole site.
Interesting. So bang for the buck, bug bounty program.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Interesting. The vulnerability management, like, is that under your umbrella, or is that like a spread out function?
No, I think so we do our own vulnerability management for like everything that we think that needs to be fixed in the, let's say, the FINN.no, like the products. So for example, anything that we verify as a real vulnerability, that is something we track. So most things from the bug bounty program, some things from the code scanning thing, and then some from like some other tools as well. And those are the metrics we try to like use basically. But like we don't really follow up on like all the false positives and that stuff. That's more just like hidden away. And we don't really have one solution at the moment where we get all the data, but we have some work in progress on that to automate more of that stuff.
I just realized when I ask you that question, I basically like vulnerability management. It kind of covers all this that we just talked about, bug bounty, and that's the same thing in your world, right?
Yeah. So it's like it's a source that can produce some sort of vulnerability, right? Right. That's basically anything. But I think in a classical sense, it's more like some sort of scanner that finds some outdated software, like that type of thing. But I guess all the tools find vulnerabilities, but I'm more focused on the verified vulnerabilities than the outdated software type of reports.
So you've never even probably like, well, I know you've seen one, but you've never like really worked with like some Nessus scan report. Basically, that's just like way too old school for you.
Yeah, well, I have, but like I don't find them that interesting because it's usually not something that it has low impact usually, or it's not exploitable, etc.
Interesting. Is there anything that like under the vulnerability management or like that umbrella that you think will be more useful moving forward, and for companies like you that are, that have like cloud applications, and like what kind of vendor pitch would actually work for you? What do you want to hear that you don't see today?
Yeah, well, so we do see today, but like when you have everything in the cloud, you have information where things are deployed, where they are exposed, and then you have can annotate all the different applications with different vulnerabilities in different call paths. Then you can easily ask the question like, okay, is this vulnerability exposed, and can it be exploited? And if it can be exploited, you should fix it right away, right? And then you can also try to filter out more easily the noise and stuff of things that are not exploitable, right? So there are a bunch of vendors that do these kinds of things, but
Do you have, the concept of like breach and attack simulation, like automated pen testing sort of stuff? Is that bullshit, or what do you think about that?
Well, so we haven't really done it, I would say. Like we do, I would say like the bug bounty is like they're hacking us all the time.
That's real shit though,
And also like the dynamic scanners, they are scanning us all the time. So like we do get all of this traffic, but we don't really test like to a breach simulation stuff. But we have like different tooling that hopefully can detect that stuff. But
I'm like, I realize I'm basically asking what all the buzzwords mean and if they're actually real. I feel bad about that. But,
I don't know. It's cool.
What are you using your time on these days? It's like, what do you like think is important and difficult to handle?
Yeah, so we are like a market-based company, and we are so lucky that we are under this new EU cybersecurity legislation called NIS2, which like puts a whole lot of requirements in different topics for cybersecurity stuff. So we are mostly working on figuring out what we need to do in order to like comply, right? So And one of the topics we are looking more into there is basically access management stuff for like access to code repos, or access to like cloud resources, and how we do that, and how we can improve that basically. So get more like just-in-time access, privilege access management stuff. So yeah, that is something we are working on. And also giving the development team more freedom to use cloud resources in a secure way. So basically giving them some more guardrails on how they can use different cloud solutions. Because now everybody wants to spin up the latest AI cloud thing and just put some data in there, right? But we need to make sure that they can do it in a secure way. And also without blocking them, of course.
Yeah. But I would assume you were probably one of the most fremst, or one of the most forward-thinking organizations when it comes to guardrails and developers. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah. We try. Yeah. Of course, that's what we try to do. Yeah. So yeah.
But is it like the AI part of that that's making it that's adding an extra thing, or is it just that you have to prove it for NIS2, or like what's the gap there?
No, not really. But like we need to improve on access management basically to like lock down things a bit more.
Yeah.
And to have more control, and also give them easier access to stuff, I would say. So
yeah, and I guess the challenge there is actually, like you went back to earlier, just like you're screwing up their workflow sort of thing. That's what you want to not do, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember your security guys coming and tell you to do something, you were just like, yep, tough man?
Yeah, sometimes, but yeah, we can work around it, of course.
Did you learn all this the hard way, or where did you go to actually find smart things to do and implement that? Like, how was that journey for you?
Not sure, like just learning by doing, I guess, figuring out what works, and like try to have some guiding principles of what you should or should not do. So, for example, one thing that we've been saying for years is that we should not block the development teams, right? So now so when we are introducing code scanning workflows, we try to do it in a way that are not like stopping their builds or stopping them from doing a deploy, because there will be too many false positives there. So basically try to follow some principles to like guide how we approach security work, let's say. And then just figure out what works by doing it and testing different things.
So you're going to have to learn by doing. That's actually the only solution, the only way to do it, Like
you have to test stuff. Like you cannot just buy different products and then just enable them, and then you have like a checkbox security thing, right? So you need to actually use them and figure out what works or not.
Do you have any like tips to share about how to make the security people and the developers actually like each other?
Well, just be nice, I would say. Just be nice and don't be a dick.
Be nice. Yeah. That's usually, a lot of people miss that one.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Also, we are very close developers, and that's also because we know how developers think, and we are a bunch of us are ex-developers, right? So it's way easier, I think, when you've been there before.
So last but not least, AI.
Yeah, so I would say it's a very nice tool for many different parts of the organization. So people use it to write stuff, right, or to rewrite stuff, and the developers use it a lot when coding, like the coding assistants. And then I guess we can also use AI in the so our code scanning tool now has like this AI autofix feature, right? So we can automatically fix the vulnerabilities it finds. So like it can help on a lot of stuff, I would say, but I wouldn't say that it's a one-stop shop. Like you have to use it carefully and figure out what works, and also like steer it in the right direction, right?
Well, didn't you guys get a bunch of like pushback internally? Like, what if you just start blindly trusting what the thing is doing, and just like it just changes things because it's auto fix? Like, hasn't that been like a concern?
Yeah, well, so the way it works, that it will create a pull request, so you have to like review it. Like it won't just go around fixing stuff and then push to production, because like that tool is also like it doesn't give you the best fixes sometimes, right? So you have to do a manual review, or you can try to suggest a new review, right? Yeah.
So I guess the difference is that it suggests, but it gives you like the suggestion. Now it writes all the code, and you just got to make sure that it's all good, right?
Yeah. So it's a buddy, not like a mentor, I would say.
Yeah. The concept of AI agents.
Yep.
What do you think about that? And I've seen like some demos online where they're like, make me a web application or make me a website, whatever. And then you could just see like the screen doing stuff. I could just kind of see in the future where developers kind of like, what am I supposed to do at work? I could just have this thing do it for me.
Yeah. If it's more effective, then just go for it, right?
Yeah. Well, can you do me a favor, Emil? And if that ever happens, you got to let me know so I can get whoever has some experience with that to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But as of now, it's not usable yet, I guess. Then it hasn't reached your table.
Yeah, I think so. Like we do use like all of these tools, but not to automate everything, I would say. Like we still need some human in the loop to quality assurance, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to hear from you and from Finn. I've actually never had any bad experiences on Finns, and it makes sense. You just have your stuff under control.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for sharing your expertise, Emil, and take care.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Yep.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.